Welcome everyone. Glad to see that we got a full house here. Tonight we are very pleased that we can that we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance and the presentation of the colors by the Boy Scouts. Please come on in.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll have our invocation, please. This is Pastor James Myers from the Biltmore East Campus.
Thank you. Let us pray. Father God, we just want to pause right here before we move through the agenda. As we lead into this week of Thanksgiving, we can turn on the news, we can see the hurt around our world, we can see it here in our own country, and we can look to some of our neighbors, God. But I think everyone in here is in agreement that we have still yet much to be thankful for. And Scripture tells us that every good gift comes from you. And so, God, I tell you, thank you for that. I thank you for the way you've continued to preserve us. We thank you for the protection that you offer for us, especially in this community. Lord, I thank you for those who are in representation today, the households that are represented, but also those who've been elected and serve. And Lord, I just pray over every agenda item, every motion, everything that is made, Lord, that it would be pleasing before you, honorable before you, God. And Lord, I pray that you go before us, that you give us wisdom as decisions are made. And Lord, that you remind us that you are on your throne and you're in control and you're worthy of our complete trust. We love you. In Christ's holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, young men. Appreciate it. Nice to see traditions being kept. Under some announcements, the first one is that we had Arbor Day a couple weekends ago. I was not able to attend, but Larry Harris did, and so I'm going to ask Larry to give a quick overview about what happened down at Lake Tomahawk.
Yeah, I don't know who was able to make it in and out. The Urban Forestry Commission had a Arbor Day event. I think called a celebration and an event, because I don't know if you're celebrating when you're pruning trees, but that's a good bit of what they did. Had some arborists who came and gave their time and also the use of their equipment to prune trees all along the Tomahawk Avenue side of Lake Tomahawk, and they did a heck of a lot of work. I can't speak with any expertness about what they're doing, but they're climbing all in those trees and cutting lots of limbs down, and it's a gift. It's a contribution that these folks are making. All the folks from the Urban Forestry Commission were there, and 3 large trees were planted. 2 along that side of the lake, and a maple tree out near the road, sort of right across from the golf course, and that was to honor the prior chairman of the Urban Forestry Commission, Van Burnett, who accepted his award in absenteeism. But it's a great event, a lot of time and effort, and so when you see the folks on the Urban Forestry Commission, give them a shout out. A lot of good work and just a lot of good community spirit there, so we appreciate what they do.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. There's lots of events coming up. One of them will be the Joy to the World. The Black Mountain Swannanoa Chamber of Commerce will hold its annual Christmas banquet Tuesday, December the 8th at Montreat Assembly Inn. So hopefully you can attend that. If you need to get tickets for that, go to the Chamber of Commerce. And also, too, the Chamber will be putting on the parade, which will be December the 5th at 4 o'clock. Floats and all will be assembling out near the elementary school about 3 o'clock, because the parade starts right at 4. All right. We have a proclamation that I would like to read and then present to the family of honoring Jesse Forney Sherrill. Whereas the town of Black Mountain desires to recognize and honor the memory of citizen Jessie Forney Sherrill for her dedication and diligence while serving the community of Black Mountain. And whereas Jessie Forney Sherrill was a career nurse at the Veterans Administration Hospital with a career spanning over 30 years. And whereas Jessie Forney Sherrill, during her career as a nurse, did assume additional duties to continue to enrich her community through volunteerism efforts with the Swannanoa Christian Ministry and Meals on Wheels. And whereas Jessie Forney Sherrill was a Sunday school teacher and lifelong member of the Mills Chapel Baptist Church. And whereas Jessie Forney Sherrill was instrumental in the restoration and expansion project at Oak Grove Cemetery and served as a charter member of the Thomas Chapel Restoration Organization. And whereas Jessie Forney Sherrill served on the Martin Luther King Board and was a lifelong member of the NAACP, Jessie Forney Sherrill made a great effort to promote political, educational, social, and economic equality of rights of all persons to eliminate race-based discrimination. And whereas Jessie Forney Sherrill served as a member and chair of the Library Board for over 20 years, providing her wisdom, insight, and encouragement to the citizens of the community of Black Mountain. And now, therefore, I, C. Michael Sobel, Mayor of the town of Black Mountain, on behalf of the Board of Alderman and the citizens of Black Mountain, deem it a pleasure to honor the memory of Jessie Forney Sherrill for her years of service to the citizens of the community of Black Mountain, signed this 23rd day of November 2015. I would also like to mention that our Commissioner Ellen Frost could not make it tonight. She sends her best wishes to OL. Obviously, Commissioner Frost would not be where she is right now without all the effort that Jessie and OL put forth.
Thank you, Mark, sir. Thank you very much. She was a wonderful woman. Thank you. And here's 2 extra copies there. Thank you.
All right, we now have citizen comment. Julie Lovelock. Yes. Go ahead and stand at the podium and then give your name and address, please, ma'am.
Okay. Julie Lovelock, 605 Rhododendron Avenue, Black Mountain. I am here today again with the concerns from our rhododendron neighbors of the traffic problem and the danger we have on our street. One of the neighbors talked to you about 2 meetings ago, and we have not had a satisfactory response. So what I'm here today is to ask, do we need to do a census? What do we need to do to get some action on our street before someone is killed?
Go ahead and finish, and then I will, if you're finished, then.
I'm finished.
Yeah, because it's just a citizen comment, and we don't get into debate, but I will ask Matt just to address it real quickly.
I'll remind the board that Rhododendron Avenue is a state-maintained road. The police department did a speed study spring of this year in April. Has been out there periodically since then, and we have had discussions with the DOT engineer, and they didn't have any additional recommendations. I think they may have cleared some brush away from signs and that sort of thing, and we'll continue to use our regular amount of enforcement that we try to do all across the town. We have, there's obviously many streets that may have similar issues. We didn't find any issues there that were more extreme than they may be on other streets. I think, the issue there that the neighbors have had is that they would like additional stop signs or other measures. As I said, it is a DOT road. I know there was a request that we take that over from the DOT. That we generally do not. That would not be a trend that we've ever embarked upon in the past. And so, with that being said, without approval from the DOT engineer, I'd remind you that we did have a similar issue on Cragmont Road, and we worked closely with the DOT, and they made some changes there based on their analysis of an intersection. I don't know that there's more that I can add, except that we'll work closely with the neighbors and with the police department to continue enforcement. That's really where it stands on rhododendron.
And I've spoken with the chief of police, and they have spent some extra time out there, and they've been observing, they've been riding around a little more. But that's basically, from what Matt has said, that's where we stand on that.
And you did have the DOT, is it Vicky, is that her name? Anna came out and inspected and at least gave you a report of her assessment of the situation too, didn't she?
Yeah, it's not a written report. She just gave it. Her assessment was that that it didn't qualify for any additional traffic calming measures from the DOT perspective. No.
One of the traffic calming measures that had been mentioned in the past was putting in what we used to refer to in the old days as speed bumps, but now they call them speed tables. But that was not something that DOT. There again, that's not our road. That's North Carolina DOT road, and they're not willing to put those in.
They don't do those. I'll be frank. The DOT does not have a policy that installs speed humps or speed tables. So.
That's where we stand.
Thank you.
All right, Matt. Communication from boards, commissions, and agencies.
Yes, sir. You should have a financial statement in front of you, and our independent auditor, Gould Killian. I think Travis is here to give us an overview. I'll turn it over to you, Travis. Thank you.
Mayor Sobel, members of the board, my name is Travis Kiever with Gould Killian CPA Group in Asheville. We performed your audit this year for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2015. I'd like to thank you for allowing us to be your auditor again. It was the 4th year that our firms performed the audit. Also like to thank Dean Luby and the staff in the finance office. They worked hard, answered our questions in a timely manner, and generally cooperated really well to help complete the audit in a timely manner. The June 30 year end, and we finished our work by the end of August, issued the report in early September. So that speaks to the quality and cleanliness of the accounting records in Black Mountain, that we can get through an audit that quick. So I'd like to commend the finance office for that. I think Dean will be talking about giving a financial report a little bit later, so my presentation will be fairly brief, and it'll mostly cover the 2 reports that our audit firm issues that are included in your CAFR, and then a couple of points in the CAFR that I'll point out that I think would be of further interest to the board, and then also this second communications letter, which Dean just passed out. We issued 2 audit reports that are in your CAFR. The first one is on page 1. That's the standard audit report on the financial statements. It's an unmodified or a clean opinion, which is what everybody wants. It basically means that we, as an audit firm, believe that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The second opinion is a report on internal control over financial reporting, or a yellow book opinion. This required for audits that are done under governmental auditing standards, and it's found on page 81. This report discusses the town of Black Mountain's internal control to a limited extent. We reported, through our procedures, no material weaknesses in internal control, and we reported no issues with compliance with laws and regulations that would have a material effect on the financial statements. Keep in mind, this is not a full internal control audit. We only tested controls to the extent that it's necessary for us to do so to plan and perform our audit. Move on into the statements just a little bit. If you'll turn to Exhibit 6 on page 18. This is a budgetary comparison schedule for the general fund. It's often really helpful to the board. It kind of gives you a snapshot of the general fund as far as operating results for the year and compared to budget on one page. If you'll see, you come down to the very bottom, or near the bottom, the line revenues and other sources over expenditures. You'll see that as a result of operations, the general fund added just over $250,000 to the town's fund balance. So that's positive operating results, and I'm sure Dean will get into that a little more later on. If you flip over to the next page, page 20, Exhibit 8, that is the operating statement for the two enterprise funds that the town operates, the water fund and the golf course fund. This shows the results of operations similar to what you would see in the financial statement that a business would issue. So you can see it breaks it out by operating and non-operating income. So you can see the water fund had operating income of $162,000. The golf course had an operating loss of $95,000. Then you come down and there's a couple of non-operating items as well, which resulted in a change in net position, which is essentially the bottom line number, positive $1.3 million for the water fund and negative $15,000 for the golf course fund. Page 46, over in the footnote disclosures. Subletter D at the top of the page. This just shows a quick, kind of concise breakdown of your general fund balance. I'm sorry, page 46 at the very top. Yeah. It starts out with total fund balance in the general fund of just over $4.4 million, and then it takes away the various restrictions and further classifications of that fund balance down to a remaining fund balance. It's important to note here the remaining fund balance of $292,000, that is after taking into account the town of Black Mountain's policy of having fund balance available represents 30.5% of budgeted expenditures. That's the $2.4 million number just above there. So if you kind of add those together, essentially the town has right at $2.7 million in unassigned fund balance. You flip over 2 pages to page 48 in the required supplementary information. GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, statement number 68 had to be implemented this year. It required local governments to record their share of the asset or liability associated with any pension plan that they belong to. In the town's case, you participate in the local government employees retirement system, or ELDRS. ELDRS is more than 100% funded, so the town has actually reported a net pension asset of $340,000 this year. Keep in mind that recording this asset, there's no budgetary effect there. It doesn't affect operating results. And this asset, and I use that in quotation marks because it's essentially an accounting number. It's extremely sensitive to actuarial estimates. The key takeaway that I would look at, if I were on the board, is that the retirement system that your employees belong to is currently extremely well funded. That's the primary takeaway from that. Page 62, over towards the back. It's an analysis of your current property tax levy. And you can see up near the top it starts out with the original levy, works through any discoveries and abatements, and comes down to a net levy. Your net levy in total was almost $3.8 million. As of June 30, 2015, only a little over 9,000 of that remained uncollected. This gave you a 99.75% collection rate. That's really good. Can't get much better, obviously. This second document that Dean passed out is required auditor communications. It communicates certain information about our responsibilities as auditors and as well as the scope of our audit. Just a couple of things to highlight in there. We noted no transactions for which there's a lack of authoritative guidance or that don't conform to accounting standards. Certain elements of the financial statements are always subject to estimates, and some of the estimates are more sensitive than others. Some of the most sensitive estimates in these financials are depreciation methods used, allowances for uncollectible receivables, and the actuarial estimates used to estimate liabilities or assets arising from the pension plan that we just talked about. There were no material audit adjustments made during the audit. Any adjustments made were as a result of Dean and I just working together, normal entries that would be made to close the books out. We encountered no difficulties in dealing with management, no disagreements with management, other than our favorite football team. And the whole process was really smooth this year, at least as smooth as an audit can be. So that's, I think that's all I had. If the board has any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Any questions from the board members? Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, with the audit, we generally, while we don't usually do this during communications, for this one, we do need a motion to accept the auditor's report.
Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Next,
guess
you'll have,
Mr. Dean is up there.
yeah, Dean's going to do his semi-annual finance report.
Mayor and board, it's an honor to speak to you tonight. I'm going to go over some financial results from fiscal year 15, and then I'm also going to talk a little bit about the first 4 months of fiscal year 16. Before I start, I would like to thank Gould Killian, Matt, and all the department heads for all the help they've given me throughout the year. I'm the one who talks about a lot of these things, but my job is a lot easier because of those groups of people. Let's see if I can operate this. Where do I point it? Well, I guess I'm not giving a report. There we go. Okay. To start with, I just sort of show some years' worth of our total cash holdings. This does not include the money we're holding for the settings, because that is reserved for that work that's being done out there. You can see that we kind of peak out in March at about $6.5 million. It's been relatively steady. Actually, we peak out at the end of January, but I don't have January up there. That's really because about 80% of our taxes gets paid in December and January. And you can see that I mean, in a lot of ways, my entire report tonight is very similar to what it was last year. And we're very similar to last year, so we're in good shape with our total cash. On our next slide, the board has been putting a lot of effort into reducing debt. You can see back in fiscal year 11 and fiscal year 12, we had balances. The whole government owed close to $5 million in debt. At the end for fiscal year 17, we'll be down to $3 million, and that actually takes into account that we've had to add some debt in fiscal year 12 and 13, I believe. I think I have it noted that we paid off close to $400,000 early in debt. We paid off debt prematurely in the amount of $400,000 in the last couple of years. So that's a good trend in my view as well. Our next slide shows the total amount of money that I've been needing to budget for both principal and interest payments on debt. You can see that it kind of peaked out here in fiscal year 14 and the last year we just finished. A lot of that was because of the board's intent to pay things off early. You can see how it's going down so much, and that's going to allow us a lot of flexibility to, or should allow us some flexibility with some extra capital. This just shows a little 5-year recap of fund balance. The red total is unassigned fund balance. That's sort of spendable money by the board. And that's really the number that Travis talked about a little bit earlier. That would be 2.7, somewhere in the 2.7 range for this year. But those are also all trending in the right direction. Next, I have, these are some results for fiscal year 15, and it kind of explains why our fund balance went up by $250,000. I list some of the big revenues to start with. You can see, say, ad val taxes, sales tax, and franchise taxes all exceeded budget. Franchise taxes actually by quite a bit. The electricity franchise tax has been kind of a little unpredictable and tough for me to budget, so I was didn't do a great job on that in fiscal year 15. I also.
Is that just a part of everybody's electric bill?
Yeah, it is, and I think the reason that I'm having a little trouble with that one is the Ingalls warehouse is using a lot of electricity, and it's kind of seasonal, so it's been hard for me to get a past history with what's going on there, but I'll strive to do better on that. I also include building permits there, not that it's a large number, but we had 174,000 in fiscal year 15. That was a record high, and that exceeded the record high from last year of 163. I'll talk a little bit more about building permit revenue later on. On the lower half of this slide, I list budgets and actual expenditures by department, as well as the prior year expenditures. Most things were pretty stable. If you have any specific questions, I'm happy to try to address them. I'm proud of the fact that I think Matt and I give you a clean budget, and you can see that the department heads work hard, but we still end up at 96% of budget. So there's not a lot of wiggle room in the budget that we present every year. Water expenditures also came in at about 95%. I don't include golf in this slide because we did not have the golf course through all of fiscal year 14, and I wanted to kind of have an apples to apples comparison. Let's see, there's our building permit revenue. You can see how that has climbed since 09. I also include fiscal year 16 for the first 4 months, and where are we? We're about $130,000. I don't think that Josh would predict that we're going to keep up how we've done in the first 3 months, or the first 4 months. I do think he'd feel pretty confident we're going to well exceed fiscal year 15. We have 8 months left of building permit revenue. So again, that's not a large dollar amount for the town, but it's a good sign that if that number is doing well, a lot of other numbers do well. So I wanted to include that. Lastly, I include some numbers from October with comparable, for the first 4 months of this fiscal year, along with comparable numbers from last year. Sales tax have kind of taken off again, the third line down. We're up close to $185,000 or so. If we move down toward, or stay in the middle of the page, I'm sorry, with the golf fund revenues, Brent's going to talk to you maybe a little bit more about this, but you can see two of our main revenues, green fees and cart fees. We are about $25,000, $30,000 better in the first 4 months of this year than we were previously. Expenditures are pretty stable compared to last year. I'll also show that golf course expenditures, the bottom line, were $18,000 less than last year. So I appreciate all the work all the department heads do in trying to keep expenditures in a good shape. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
You had on there, you were talking about franchise, that, where was the optional, I was just noticing one of the, on page 8, you know, it says that the increases were 88,000
Right.
from the optional, sales tax.
From local option sales tax.
Yeah.
That's different than franchise tax.
Correct,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, but it looks like that those are the two engines that are driving this surplus.
Yeah,
And-
those are the second and third biggest general fund revenues we have after property taxes. And the three of those are sort of behaving, I mean, they're all over budget, and it's worked out nicely that all three of those have behaved nicely.
If you could address, just so the public would know, then what you anticipate or what you think's gonna happen here with, because of the way that the state legislature has changed, or possibly changed this.
The sales tax allocation?
Sales tax.
Well, I think Matt might,
I'll be glad to address that if you want me to. Dean,
well, I think,
Unless you want to tell me to.
I think the bottom line, you know more about it than I do, but I think the bottom line is we were expected to get very little impact.
Right, because what the final negotiation, like some of the original versions of that, of course, as you're aware, the goal of that from Raleigh's perspective was to reallocate sales tax revenue from the faster growing economic engines of the state and move that to some of the other areas of the state. Now, some of the previous versions did impact us, and they would have, while they would have affected the growth, because, you know, obviously we also have a growth rate that's going to continue to increase that revenue, but it would have put a damper on that. What ended up happening, though, in the final negotiation of that was that they are shifting sales tax to other areas, but they basically have implemented a hold harmless style measure so that there's no impact on the growing municipalities that would have been impacted negatively under the legislation. What they basically did is increased the types of services that have the sales tax imposed upon it. And when they do that, they take that money and reallocate that into a fund that then goes to the poorer communities, and that does not then impact us, except that it doesn't impact us financially as a municipality. Now, it impacts our residents as they are now. The only one that I can think of off the top of my head is that auto repairs are going to be. So in that sense, there are more things, more services that are being taxed. That money is then being shifted to the lower socioeconomic communities. But in terms of our finances, it doesn't.
Yeah, from the bottom line,
generate more
it's
sales
going to
tax
have
than we
very
will
little
get more.
impact on our sales tax.
Yeah.
Is what they're telling us and what we're expecting
Right.
at this point. Yeah.
Well, there's articles, there hadn't been too many lately, but there's been articles in the past, and it gets a little bit confusing as to where this is
Yeah.
going, and
Yeah,
some
they were-
people are adversely affected, some of the poor communities get more money, and so that's why I wanted you to just talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, they were changing their mind on it pretty often there for a while, but I think.
Well, and I think there was, the large. Well, first of all, the League of Municipalities was an advocate for not redistributing the sales tax, and they did a good job lobbying in Raleigh. And then the larger cities, and Asheville was one of those, but Charlotte and Raleigh and Greensboro, they were seriously impacted by it, and we were also impacted, but in a smaller sense, and not in a way that we were probably able to accommodate. But we were still, but it did impact us because all the counties that have growth in them were going to shift money to the other counties that were not growing, and so they found a different mechanism, which was to tax different services and move that money over.
And that's probably gonna be a continued trend too.
Yes.
Because they're likely to do services, accounting services, legal fees, professional services will be, the idea is lower rates and broader base, and that's the direction they're heading in. So it may not, and I bet that money will probably also be spread out. It's not gonna be, we're not gonna see as much of that as.
That's right. So I think that while Dean had talked about
the other counties
some of the revenue numbers being on the low end of the projections being on the low end, I think that's actually a healthy technique for us, because I think if our revenues are budgeted conservatively, and that gives us some margin when there is legislation that might adversely impact us, or if it doesn't, we're at least always on the safe side as far as that goes. So I think that's actually commendable, that's the way we budget our revenues and then we balance our expenses against that.
Anybody else have any comments? I want to say again, thank you for the work you've done on it, and just for the folks to understand what Dean was mentioning about the building permits, it really is future income for us because of the fact that as these building permits are issued, i.e., let's say more like the Settings or the Roberts Farm over there, these homes will be built, they'll be put into the ad valorem tax base, and that'll help give us a little increase down the road because there always will be inflation. Also, too, when you look at that capital at the reserve fund balance, what this board has decided to do, and I'm very proud of what they've done this and set up a capital reserve fund, and that is money in the bank designated for certain things like fire trucks. And so that is $285,000. So when we speak of having 2.7 million in the fund balance, reusable, it didn't include that, but yet that money is there, and that will help impact or reduce the impact of when we do have to buy these large items to replace things by.
That's absolutely correct. I should have mentioned that, really. I mean, that's a key thing to mention.
Like $500,000
Well,
total?
right now, it's at
What?
285,000.
285.
I thought there was another
That's what
three.
it was at the end of fiscal year 15.
Right, we've
Now, we took some
drawn
out.
down some of those capital projects.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going back to the chart, Travis, in the footnotes and the audited
Page.
financials that you,
Yeah.
what page was that?
46, I think.
Yeah, 46 is where the capital is.
And actually, that 285 is listed on page 46, but neither Travis or I really brought it to attention.
Oh, I see. Well, what is okay, well, help me with this then. What is the 256, 661 that's appropriated for the current budget year?
That's money that was appropriated fund balance 6 months ago when we did the fiscal 16 budget. So
Was that capital reserve though?
No, that was just money that our budgeted expenditures exceeded budgeted revenues by $256,661 when you guys passed the budget back in May. And we have to give a balanced budget, so that's what that number represents. And if you think about it, what they're really saying is you can't really spend that money because you're already budgeting that you think you're going to spend it. So it's not really available for you to spend. Am I explaining that well?
But also too, though, if the department heads continue on like they have done and
Yeah.
spent wisely,
Absolutely.
then at the end of June,
Yeah.
that money will flow back into a usable fund balance.
Yes, that's what happened this year
And
as well.
that's happened the last
Last,
40.
every year, yeah, that happens every year.
But I mean, but it looks like an expenditure, it looks like that we don't have that money. But yeah,
It looks like
but
money
we
that's
probably will.
allocated, it looks like money that's not, that's not available, but it is, but, because we've appropriated it for a purpose. And so if we don't need it by the end of the year, which like they said, in the last 4 years, the fund balance has grown, we've not. But that's why you have to add up these different categories to kind of see the full picture.
Yeah, the idea, Dean explained it pretty well. The 256, the idea is that since that was already appropriated in the budget, the idea is you guys are already saying, from a budget standpoint, we're going to have to spend it. So as of June 30th, it's not available to be spent. But like I said, that happens just about every year, and it turns out you don't need it. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else from anybody?
That's it. I just want to say that also too, that's, congratulations to this board for being very fiscally responsible. When you think about it, we've paid down debt, we got more money in the bank, we're improving our buildings, we're improving fields, we're improving the golf course. Things are looking pretty darn good, and the taxes have not gone up. So, thank you.
If I could expound upon that, Mr. Mayor, that with things looking good the way they are, and for citizens to have bit the bullet the way we did when we raised taxes a couple of years ago, and I've asked over several years now that we look at lowering the tax rate. I think we still need to do that this fiscal year. Come budget time, we've asked the citizens to dig in their pockets And they put us in this position where we are a lot better off. And I think come June or July, we need to reward them by lowering the tax rate.
If nobody has any other questions on the general financial statements, Brent is gonna come up here and talk to you a little bit about the golf course.
All right, Mayor Sobel, Board, thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Brent Miller. I'm the Golf Operations Manager at the golf course. I'm here to give you a kind of a semi-annual update. Thought it was important to start out with some improvements that we made this year. We added drainage to the 5th tee, drainage at the 14th green. We rebuilt the bunker to the left of 2 green, added drainage under the cart path. I don't know if any of you have spent much time on the course, but we have a problem with drainage out there. We've tried to work on it the last 3 or 4 years. It's getting a lot better. When we have drainage issues, these are places where the grass dies immediately. It sits underwater. So those are things that we got to, get on top of. We also did some underbrushing on the 2nd and 8th tee boxes. Those tee boxes were struggling, so by underbrushing them, it allows more sunlight to the turf. Of course, they get better. We did a solid tine aeration in the spring and a deep core aerification in the fall. Also want to make mention that Maggie Tuttle, the Ladies Association, and the Men's Association held a tournament in, I guess, late April that raised enough money to where we were able to do a 3rd aerification at the end of the summer. It was a pencil tine, and the greens are better than they've been in years. So,
To labor's point, but would you please explain those aerations and that there's not just a simple technique, but the advantages of doing them the way that you
yeah, so
employ?
a solid tine basically means that we're not pulling a core out of the ground. It goes 8 inches in. It's about 3/8 inches around the hole. It drives down the bad soil. We replace it with seed and a sand mixture, and it allows drainage and allows more airflow to the roots. So that's what the solid is. The core aeration is when we're actually pulling a 5/8 inch core out of the ground. It's about 4 inches long. And you got to kind of do a mixture of the two. You can't pull cores all the time. You can't do solid tines all the time. You just want to mix it up. When the turf sees something different, it reacts better. So is that kind of what you're, okay. I also want to say that we moved Jerry Brigman up as the superintendent this year, and that has done more good for that golf course than I can actually say up here. He's done a fantastic job. His staff's done a fantastic job, so I want to give him a little bit of recognition for that. The 13th green, as you see there on the left, that is 2014 when we took that picture. The green was in awful shape. Half of it was really dry, half was really wet. We couldn't kind of find the balance. The picture on the right there was taken in October of this year. Jerry has done a fantastic job bringing that green back. We can use 100% of the surface now. We actually just reopened the right side and started putting the pins back over there. And it's night and day difference. You can see it in the pictures there. And that's a good example of what all of our greens are starting to look like now. So good job to them on that. We got more projects planned for the winter. We're going to install some drainage in 11 approach, then underbrush to the left of 11 green, add drainage there. Install drainage in 14 approach. We've had a lot of rain here this fall. It's gotten extremely wet. It's probably one of our worst areas. That picture was taken, I guess, about a month ago. And you can kind of see where some of the muddy areas are up there. We're going to try to remedy that. The problem is the fairway is actually lower than the creek in some places. So, it's hard to push water uphill. So we may have to add some soil and try to get the level of that fairway up just a little bit so that we can actually drain that water out. But those would be two major projects. We'll have some other little things going on. We want to work on the bunker at 8 Green. Maggie can probably tell you that bunker is difficult to say the least and really hard to maintain. So not sure what we're going to do with it yet, but that will be a project. Larry can back me up on that as well.
I've never been in that bunker.
So what does all this mean for the golf course? This is probably what everybody wants to know, if our revenues are doing better, and they are. 2015-16 combined cart and green fees compared to the average of the last 5 years. You can see the dark blue there is 2015-16 season. The gray is the 5-year average. May, June, July, August were up considerably. September we're actually down a little bit. We were running ahead up until the 24th of September, but that's when we got all that rain. We were closed for the last part of the month, and that kind of hurt us. But I did want to kind of hit the high spots there. July this year we were at $67,701. The 5-year average is $53,903, so that's almost $14,000 up for that month. Same thing in August. We were at $64,410. 5-year average is $50,670. So again, $14,000 up in that month. It's a good trend for the golf course. That's what we want to see, more play. And that's all really based on the golf course being in better shape. The two correlate with one another. So as long as we keep the place looking good, I think you'll keep seeing numbers increasing like they are. Membership, everybody knows we went up on the membership a little bit this year. We actually sold 7 less memberships, but our membership revenue went up. That's because our average per membership sold is $680 this year. It's a $100 increase from last year's average. So, you might think we sold less memberships, we're getting less play, but we sold less memberships, made more money, and you can see here we actually got more play. Our 30-day average, the blue is 2014, the gray is 2015. May, June, July, August, and September would have been, again, we got the rain at the end of the month, but we're significantly ahead. Example there, July, our 30-day average was 104 rounds per day. Last year, that same time, I think it says 78, so that's quite a significant leap. So when you drive by the golf course and see all those cars out there, that's why things are going quite a bit better. Any of you have any questions for me?
Not per se a question, but just a compliment. You've always been very polite and very helpful whenever I've come out to the golf course. You've always been sure to give me a straight up answer to any questions I have, and I think the golf course is doing great under your leadership, and I'm really proud of what you're doing out there.
I appreciate that. Anybody else?
I agree, Carlos. He has done a good job and got a good team. As with the town, as with anything, the companies know better, the towns know better than the people you got working for you. We're lucky to have some good people.
With that said, I do want to thank Dean and Matt. They have helped me out a ton the last 2 years trying to get this thing going in the right direction. So thanks to them for that.
Well, all I can say is the numbers don't lie. They speak for themselves. From where we were to just a little under 2 years ago to where we are now, with the comparison between town management and outside management, the numbers are drastically different, and we're headed in the right direction, and we're proud of you guys.
Appreciate it.
I think one of the biggest improvements I've seen is the communication that I see going on daily between the management. I don't think in the whole time I've been a part of the golf course, I've seen daily, I don't want to call it check, but daily communication between management, staff, That's impressed me as much as anything. Super job. I wish Jerry Brigman were here to take a bow with you.
It's hard to get Jerry up.
It is, it is. But thank you from the members, but members are our customers. And the whole atmosphere is just totally, totally different. It's wonderful.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, young man.
Next, we've got Erica Anderson from the Land of Sky Regional Council. She's the Economic and Community Development Director, that she'll give a brief update to.
Good evening. I apologize for my voice and have a cold, but can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate being here. I wanted to go through a few slides, and I apologize they're not very readable, but it gives you a good idea of what the plan looks like now. We do have it all online, so I invite you to go to our website and look at that in detail. We'll get started. So this plan started off in January, and this is something that Land of Sky Regional Council is tasked with through the Economic Development Administration. It's a regional comprehensive economic development strategy, or CEDS. And we do this every 5 years. We have a major update. This was a major update. Annually, we revise it, we review it, see if we're still on track, see if the priorities are still the same in the region or if they've changed at all. And so we pulled together a CEDS steering committee or work task force. Councilman Harris was kind enough to volunteer to be on that group for us, as well as a wide range of people from the private sector, the public sector, government, as well as a lot of our area nonprofits or social or service healthcare providers. So we started this process in January of this past year. So we're almost coming up on a full year now. And we met every few weeks until about July. We went through a long process of kind of looking at a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, identify priorities, challenges in the region, and then we work through what the priorities are. So I'll walk you through that process. So our first thing is we had a vision. It's kind of broad and all-encompassing, but it speaks more to our area here. Prosperous, business-friendly region, resilient economic development strategies, jobs, smart infrastructure investments, and then vital community. And for this region, just to remind you all, for Land of Sky Regional Council includes Madison, Buncombe, Henderson, Transylvania counties, as well as Haywood County for transportation planning. And we included all 5 of those counties in this effort, as a lot of our data comes from that whole analysis region. So the components of this CEDS is a summary background, the SWOT analysis, and then we create an action plan based on those. We have economic resilience chapter now, and goals, strategies, and then metrics, and a time frame in which we're going to deliver those. So this is a screen capture of part of the plan, and this was one thing that kind of struck us as we're working on the plan is by 2040, so within about 15, 20 years, we're seeing the population is projected to grow by 180,000 people for the 5-county region. So that's basically 2 cities the size of Asheville within the region. So that gives us a kind of a starting point of looking at this and where are we going to put those people? Where are they going to live? Where are they going to work? What services will they need? What will the demographics look like? What types of people are coming to the area or are aging in the area? So those are some of our main starting point for a lot of the needs for our region. We moved into the SWOT. So first to do that is you look at all the strengths and you list them out in a kind of brainstorming. And then you look at the weaknesses for the region. And then opportunities, so where we can move forward some different types of programs, different projects. And then threats are those things that we really don't have any control over necessarily, but we want to identify so that we can move forward with a strategic plan. Paired with the SWOT analysis, we did a fairly in-depth data analysis for each of our counties. You all, I think, may have a copy of Buncombe County's fact sheet. There's one for the region as a whole and then one for each of the 5 counties. And some of the things that kind of sparked our attention is the area as a whole is almost a quarter of the population are over 65. We have a growing demographic in that area, so that drives a lot of conversation about how do we provide services for folks who want to age in place or who are retiring here and want different or need different services. So that's an ongoing theme throughout this plan. Another is Ingalls is the second largest employer in Buncombe County, and they're housed in Black Mountain with your warehouses and the headquarters. So that's I don't know how many know that they are the second largest in Buncombe, but that was very interesting. So we have 4 goals from the plan. The first was promote economic development and entrepreneurship, invest in infrastructure. The other is healthy and vibrant communities, so that's looking at what we have here. That's a cultural resource, natural resources, what makes our area special, and finding economic development opportunities that fit that. We don't want to force something or have that be in conflict with what people really hold dear here. And then our 4th is workforce development, so that's building jobs and opportunities. The 6 target sectors that were identified are areas that meet those goals. We have tourism, which is our #1 economic sector at the moment. Advanced manufacturing, educational services, health and social assistance, and then professional, scientific, and technical services, and agricultural technologies. Of those, the scientific and technical services are probably the one where we have the least number of employees in that sector right now, but that's one that all of the counties want more emphasis in order to provide greater service in those higher wage jobs. Okay. So this is a statistic from the whole state of North Carolina as a whole that in 10 short years, 1 in 4 North Carolinians will be 60 and older. So this speaks more to that demographic that the whole of the state is seeing the same type of kind of demographic shift as we are in the West. We're just a little bit ahead of that trend here. Okay. Definitely don't try to read this slide. But this is an example of how the layout is. We have our goals with all our metrics on one column. And we tried to identify metrics that were measurable, that had a timeline, and then identified who that responsible entity was going to be so that we just didn't try to throw a whole bunch of things out there that were unattainable or not worthwhile to look at down the road. And then we paired these with case studies for each of the 4 goals. So this is an example of aging in place for the 3rd goal, that vital communities piece. And the last part of the plan is looking at that evaluation framework. So a plan's only as good as your implementation of it. And this will help us determine how things are being measured and who ultimately is taking this on. Where Land of Sky Regional Council is tasked with creating the plan and bringing everyone together and keeping up with the updates and the implementation, we are not tasked with all of the project or program implementation. And there are a lot of things that our partners are doing a tremendous job of that we want to highlight and make sure are part of the plan so that we're all aware of trying to move things forward at the same time and not at odds. And then the final piece that was something that's a little new to the planning process for the SEDS is we want to look at ways to create local wealth. And these are some ways that we're looking at it. There are different, or 8 types of wealth, and they're talking about individual educational attainment, local wealth creation with businesses, and that type of thing, so that we can start to benchmark some of these areas that we're highlighting and priorities for the region. And that's all I have for this. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Erica, is it just to help, the public for me too, to understand the process, which is really kind of confusing actually if you've never done it before. But each of the regional councils in the state has a plan, updated every 5 years, just like we did, and the state has a plan as well.
That's right, that's a good point.
And so you're trying to, and one of your objectives, and Erica's being modest in saying that she had all this help because, she really drives the whole thing and pulls it together and is a, professional at what she does. But what you're really trying to do is to coordinate as best you can so that when funds are available through grants, and primarily that's how they come down from the federal government through the state government, you have a plan that is in place and structured so that you can be as flexible and go after those funds, in an efficient manner. Is that kind of the bigger picture look at it? Is that fair?
It is, that's right. You should come with me.
It is sort of confusing to look at all that, but that is the objective. And then I think it's worth sharing one other thing that that has been on discussion at Land to Sky meetings, and that is the discrepancy, and Matt's well aware of this, we chatted about it, between different parts of the state and how some of these funds flow. And I guess one of the stats I heard that's pretty interesting is that maybe if you took the funds, if you have to help me with this if I get it wrong, but if you took the funds that were distributed in the past 10 years, it's maybe like 60-some million dollars, $80 million or something, maybe 80. But like maybe 85% of that, it's a huge number. That may be the right percentage, but it's a huge percent is distributed east of I-95.
It is. And I think one of the things with our SEDS, where we did try to tie it in with a statewide plan, is to build that direct line from the state all the way down through to the local levels of where those investments make the most sense and where the priorities are. So with this plan in place, it allows municipalities and counties in our region to apply for economic development assistance money or block grant funds, which is what you're referring to. And it's really taken with a lot of strength behind it at the federal level. So a lot of our federal agencies refer to this and make sure that what is being proposed is in the plan and is a priority for the region. So it is a critical piece for federal funding, and we look at one of our jobs as trying to bring federal funds and those tax dollars back into our region as well. So this is a good tool to help us do that.
Erica, what's being done to address some of the threats that you have under the creative regional solutions, like youth flight, the housing options, the growing too fast?
That goes to the 180,000 population growth, and I think what it really kind of turned a lot of light bulbs on for those of us on the committee is when you look at the data and see the numbers kind of match up with people's impression, where affordable housing is kind of reaching a critical point for a lot of our communities, particularly our urban areas, so Asheville, surrounding areas, Hendersonville and surrounding areas. At the same time, we're having an issue with finding jobs in rural areas to keep youth and folks who want to stay employed in those areas. So we're facing some challenges that we're really struggling with. How do we address these? I know a lot of our elected officials and municipal staff are really struggling with those as well. So there's no easy answer for those, unfortunately, but those are all high priorities for all of us right now.
What is Land to Sky's position on I-26 development?
That's a hot topic. We also house the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and thank you all for serving on that board as well. They have moved the I-26 up a little bit in the timeline, DOT has. So we'll be hearing a lot more about that development as we move forward. I think right now we're waiting to see how our local government's opinion is and and we'll take their lead at the next MPO board.
How can this area piggyback on that plan if possible?
Well, staff, I know Josh is on the staff level MPO board, and then the elected official version of the MPO board itself that makes the decisions. I'm not sure if we'll have official comments for DOT for any of the different projects that are proposed right now are basically which of these 4 types of projects do you want to see go through. And then after this next level, that's when they really get into the nitty-gritty details of exactly where these will be located and what the impacts will be on different communities in different areas. So I think that will happen during the merger meetings, which are scheduled for this spring. So I think there's still a lot of information that we're collecting and going through and working with our communities on to see what impacts there will be with these different options and go from there. So I'm not sure we have a concrete opinion yet. We're still in the process of weeding through those.
And from the board's perspective, Carlos, Maggie's our representative on the MPO. So if there's concerns or issues or questions, she won't know all the answers off the top of her head. But we can get those answers and get that feedback so that the consensus of the board is heard through the process.
And if there's anything we can help with disseminating out from our MPO staff as well, let us know, because I think we're trying to keep up with all of the information exchange and getting information out without overwhelming everybody too much. So.
Thank you for your answers.
You know, you're a valuable resource. I'm not sure people really realize how valuable the Land of Sky is. I know for us, I don't know what we'd do without you.
Thank you.
Really.
Thank you. We enjoy
Thank
our
you.
jobs.
Thank you for the good work. Appreciate the good report.
Thank you.
You know, I'd add one thing too while Erica's leaving. Thanks for coming with your not feeling well. But I think it's worth noting that Land of Sky, and this is not done with any of the funds that the Buncombe County pays, but with funds that were earned, and Erica, you can help me with this if I'm putting it incorrectly, but with funds that primarily through the Medicaid call center, which has been a source of revenue. I think that's probably right. But in any event, we are, Land of Sky has engaged an advocacy firm to help us, and that lobbyist, to be another word for it, Steve Metcalf's firm. And Steve is well connected both from prior work in the county at various levels and is a registered lobbyist, but now he is a Land of Sky Regional Council is a client. And that's all public information, and I think that will be helpful for us because we need presence in Raleigh to help communicate our needs and so forth, and I think that'll be effective. I have high hopes for that. It would be a good thing for us, and that's relatively new within the last month or so, I think, isn't it, Erica?
Very good. Thank you. Matt, consent agenda.
Yes, sir. You've got the adoption of minutes from your October 8th agenda workshop, your October 21st regular session, and the closed session from September 14th. You've got a call for a public hearing to amend some text sections of the land use code for the definition of a greenhouse. We have an exemption now for hoop houses, and this addresses that. We have, and the planning board has made a recommendation, so that's a public hearing being called in December. You've got a budget amendment for insurance settlement proceeds for 2 vehicles, one in the police department and one in the fire department. You've got a budget amendment to recognize a revenue from the Greenway Commission. There was a donation for the Riverwalk Greenway Trail. This was to begin the process of submitting plans to Norfolk Southern so that there wouldn't be a time gap between when those plans could be prepared and the funding that we got from DOT, which just as, and this is related to this briefly. We have sent everything to DOT. We're waiting. I know that Josh got an email saying that they were doing their review of our paperwork, and we should have that back. I think they said, I think they got it in October, and it takes about 30 days to review, so we'll get that back from them to begin the process. But this revenue was a donation from the Greenway Commission, like I said, to bridge the gap between some funding that we had and some funding that we have coming available from the DOT. You've got a budget amendment for a skid unit for the UTV in the fire department. This is from a donation, again, which, as always, we're thankful for donations. And this comes in the amount of $5,722. And then we covered the difference in that for this purchase in the amount of $2,528. This skid unit will slide into the back of the UTV as be used for search and rescue and wilderness opportunities that we may have come up. I think Chief, it'll hold foam and water and some other equipment that we need for rescue events that come up. And so I'm again appreciative of that donation for that purchase. You've got a budget amendment to replace our street lights with LED street lights. Currently, we spend well, Duke Power has us down for $108,000 as our annual contribution for street lights in town. With this budget amendment in the amount of $10,150, this is a subsidized amount, obviously, for Duke to change out our street lights to LED lights. With that, the annual reduction in the utility expense for those street lights should drop $20,000. So if that is accurate, then then your payback for that contribution is less than a year. We obviously have this as coming out of our appropriated fund balance. The reason we did that, we're not on the schedule to have these streetlights replaced until the spring of 2016. So we won't see the impact on the utility line item until the next budget year. But that impact would actually, this is a money saver for the town annually from this point forward, or from the point forward where they're installed. So, but since it wasn't going into effect in this budget year, we did it out of fund balance. It's still a good investment. You've got a budget amendment for audio-visual recording system at the police department. This is in the amount of $7,500. This comes out of the ABC distribution money, so it's restricted to uses for the police department, and this is to upgrade their interview room with much-needed audio and visual recording system. And that is your consent items.
Do I hear a motion to pass the consent agenda? Anybody wish to pull anything off or discuss it any further before we vote? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. We've got new business on a couple of items on the town golf course policy and the lease with Norfolk Southern Railway. So, as is customary, we have a citizen comment period prior to that. If someone wishes to go ahead and speak to those two items, let me do so now. Not seeing anybody, we will then go into new business.
And your item A of new business is the amendment of the town golf course policy. As you're aware, currently the policy is that children no children under the age of 9 are allowed on the golf course. That policy is not really in line with the industry standards in the region. And I think Brent would back me up on this, that I think with the positive moves that we've made with the golf course, we need to encourage families to play golf. I think there's a reasonable way, a responsible way to do that. What we'd like to amend the golf course policy to read is to say that children under the age of 12 may play for free at the Black Mountain Golf Course, but must be accompanied by a paying adult. And the golf course manager reserves the right to refuse service to children under the age of 12. So this, I think this will encourage families to come out, to bring their children, and maybe we'll bring a different cross-section of folks to the golf course, which I think would be a positive for us, while still maintaining some level of accountability for when people do bring children to the golf course, and we'll give some discretion to Brent if he feels like that's an issue. I know one of the questions that we had last week was, how that, to make sure this didn't become an issue with golf carts. I think, and I talked to Brent, and Brent, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to be 16 to drive a golf cart. If he's got questions, he does require to show a driver's license. So we're not going to, obviously, if we bring more children onto the golf course and more families, we'll have to monitor it and make sure that they're not letting 10-year-olds drive golf carts. But we do that now, so we make sure that people don't have a 13 or a 14 or a 15-year-old driving a golf cart either. So Brent will be able to monitor that, and we'll let people know at the golf course that when they're responsible for their children, that includes not driving golf carts.
One of the things here that I just have a question on, and I think it's good that Brent's got the authority then to refuse service to people children under 12. Obviously, with the way this is worded, it doesn't say that there's a minimum age. And so how does that work at other courses?
Yeah, so I actually called around to all the golf courses in a 45-mile radius and just tried to get an idea of what other courses were doing. A couple places had like an age restriction of 6 or 7 years old. Some had no age restriction. I think what you'll see is we really don't have a lot of kids on the golf course as it is now, and I don't think that this is going to blow up the number of kids, sadly, that we do have on the course. I'd love to see a lot more. So I don't want to put a age restriction on there, but Tiger Woods is a good example. He started playing golf when he was 3 years old. And look at him now. Well, not now, but.
Maybe he should have started when he was 12.
Yeah. So I didn't like the idea of putting an age restriction, at a low end on there, because I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Good.
I think we just have to deal with each case kind of.
Well, the primary concern is safety. And so that's really what you're monitoring. And so as long, because a golf course can be a dangerous place for even a 10 or 12-year-old, frankly. And so as long as we're monitoring safety, which I know you are, that's the primary purpose. And yeah, we want to encourage people to come out with their children. That's a great thing, but just obviously have to keep the play moving and all that sort of thing and be safe, which
and I think
I know you do.
This mirrors Muni's policy, I believe. I believe they use 12 and under with an accompanying adult, and probably have the same level of discretion that if it's, if they think that's an issue, they would address it in kind of
I'm
the
not
way
going
we're
to
going to do
send
it.
a 7-year-old out on the course by themselves. The point is to have them with an adult. And, maybe if there's a kid who's interested in playing golf, his parents don't play, this might spur them to start playing golf because it's something that their child wants to do. So.
Very good.
Brent and Maggie, do you guys do any clinics for kids now?
Yeah, we do a junior golf camp every summer. We did that this year. I think there was 20 kids that showed up this year. That's about the average.
How about a 3-hole tournament for 12 and under?
We actually did so the golf camp is Monday through Thursday. We actually did a tournament for the parents and the kids that Saturday following the camp.
Thanks.
A lot going on there. And I have noticed younger people out on the golf course this season, younger adults than I've noticed in a while.
That's good.
It's happening.
Good. All right, if we don't have any more comments, and do I hear a motion?
So move.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Second new business is approval of updated lease with the Norfolk Southern Railway.
Yes, sir. We currently have a lease with Norfolk Southern for some encroachments into their right-of-way where the depot is, where there's some plantings when you come up with from the parking lot at SunTrust, and then they want to include in too the parking, excuse me, along Sutton across from Henson's. So with that, we currently pay $720 a year in our lease arrangement. This would increase that to $1,500 a year. I know that I asked Ron to take a look at the contract with Norfolk Southern. There's not a lot of wiggle room in it. If you have concerns, we'll take it back to them. But other than that, basically it's a doubling of the fee and it's an annual cost, and it's a doubling of the fee to have those encroachments into the right of way.
They're jerks, but unfortunately, it's just, we either do it or we have problems. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous also. No unfinished business. All right, communication from the staff.
Fortunately, I have nothing this month.
All right. Just a quick thing on this from Scott Carter here. This is on about the Herbert Turner property down there where we've gone ahead. The town is the lien holder because of the demolition. Is this the building that was demolished right there where you come out of Drexel? Is that
I don't know,
what
Michael,
this is?
you get that letter first, and so I don't
Yeah,
know.
just, well, go ahead and just pass it. I mean, it's no big deal, but just see. I'm just wondering if that's the property that they're talking about.
We'll check and make sure that's what, is that what?
Because if you're going down Old US 70, you would turn right to go up into the center.
I think that's it.
You pass the row of white pines, and then there was an old block building there. And good gosh, this is maybe 6, 7 years ago, we had that thing torn down. And, but anyway, just give us an update.
Yeah, we'll follow up on that.
Okay. Matt, got anything else?
The only thing I would add, I know you had noted the Christmas parade. I would also point out that as part of the Chamber's holiday event schedule, they are having the Shop Small initiative starts on Saturday, November 28th, and we'll start that with the tree lighting. We have a 20-foot tree at Town Square, and they'll light that at 6 o'clock this upcoming Saturday. And then that'll kind of be the kickoff for some of their Holly Jolly celebrations, where the merchants will be open from 5 to 8, starting on Friday, December the 4th. And then, of course, after the parade, we'll have the Circle of Lights down at Lake Tomahawk with hot dogs and hay rides and lots of fun things like that too. I want to remind everybody of that. And I think that's all that I have. After, the 28th is the tree lighting.
And
then December 5th, after the parade, is the Circle of Lights.
And then the dredging.
That's right. And then after the circle of lights, the lake will go down. And just to give you a brief update, we do anticipate. We've sent letters out, and we're going to anticipate a bid opening for that on December the 15th. So, and that will be here at 2 o'clock.
All right, does anybody from the board have any comments?
I'm sorry, Don, go ahead. I just have a quick shout out to some good friends and a lot of folks here in the citizens and also folks here on the board know. But an organization, a nonprofit organization called Christian Friends of Korea, celebrated their 20th anniversary in October. And I'm just going to read this. This is actually just from their website, but I'll mention a few of the board members that are folks here in Black Mountain and or Montreat. But Rob Robinson is the board chairman. Heidi Linton, and she lives here in Black Mountain, is the executive director. My friend John Akers is on the board. Our friend Steve Acito is on the board, along with some other folks. But beginning in 1995, North Korea suffered from floods and droughts for several successive years, leading to widespread hunger, malnutrition, and disease. And since then, Christian Friends of Korea has been blessed to send, on behalf of many long-standing partner organizations, churches, and individuals, over $79 million worth of goods to very needy segments of the population. And it's really quite a story. They work in areas they work in a good bit are healthcare facilities. TB in that part of the world is still, still takes a lot of lives and is a problem. They partnered with Stanford University and built basically a TB center, and this is in North Korea, interestingly enough. They do drill wells, they do greenhouses, they have medical staff training. It's a good humanitarian work, and just a shout out to them on their 20th anniversary for the good work they do. They're facility is located down on Central Avenue, isn't it, down where the old Black Mountain, across the street from the old Black Mountain News office and so forth. But they have a warehouse there, and the folks are doing good work, so we just want to congratulate them on their 20th.
Okay. As always, after Dean gives his presentation and the auditors give their review, I just want to give my thanks to Matt and Dean and town department heads for the way that they've worked together and for the accomplishments that they've done, not only this year, but in the last 4 years, and I'm going to keep adding it up as long as it's going in the right direction, Matt. We've got $1,872,000 less debt in this town because of these guys. We've got $792,000 more in the bank because of these guys. And it was done with $1,200,000 less garbage tax. It was done with less property tax. And by doing things like management on the golf course, we're not where we're trying to get, but the hemorrhaging of money has stopped on that place. And that's a town asset, and these guys are turning it around. And just as I said before, the numbers don't lie. And I just want to say thanks to you guys for the job that y'all have done, the department heads, you, Matt, you, Dean, everybody. This town is lucky to have the staff that we've got. And I'd put them up against any town staff in the state of North Carolina.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
They make us look awfully good.
Oh,
don't
awfully
they?
good. You make our job easy, gentlemen. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, two things. First thing, I want to congratulate these three aldermen on being reelected and look forward to another at least 2 years with you and moving on and doing the town's business and making sure we, like Mr. Collins just spoke about, making sure that we're doing the right thing in all the eyes of all the citizens. And working into that, I think it's very important that we recognize the greatest asset we have in this town, and that's our citizens. Our citizens, we have town elders, we have mentors, we have leaders, people who have dedicated their lives, their careers, their time to making sure that Black Mountain is a great place to live. And I think it's very important to honor those people with proclamations while they're still with us and not necessarily waiting until they've passed on. It was good to have the proclamation from Ms. Cheryl this evening. I'm going to request that we also do proclamations for two citizens that we lost recently, Mr. Bud Hall, Mr. Tom Merritt, two people who have roots who run very, very deep in this town, who've done many, many great things in this town, who have impacted lots of lives and people in this town. So I will ask for us to present proclamations to them. I think it's important for us to look at our living legends. We have two of them sitting in this room right now, or maybe three of them. I mean, Pablo, Gay Fox, I can never remember your name. Mary Leonard White. But these are people who have also done many things in this town. They brought us a very long way. And I think it's very important for us to honor them and appreciate them while they're still here with us. So with that in mind, I'd like somewhere within the next couple of months, within next year, that we get together and we honor these folks for the accomplishments that they've made. It's like I read something on Facebook. Don't bring me flowers after I pass. Bring them so I can appreciate them while I'm still alive. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Well said, Carlos.
If not, meeting adjourned.